Good morning. Welcome to Sunset Beach, continuation of our 2023-24 budget workshop. May I have a motion to open the meeting?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Lisa, Tara, take it away.
So you recently, or last week, received a budget where we have put everything in here. It's within $5,000 of a balanced budget. The day before I actually sent these out, I got the projections from the state. So I had gone back in, and what you see for revenues is what we will have as far as estimates. They're not going to get any closer. These won't be changed at all. I haven't gotten an update from the county since the end of March. That's their most latest county update. The only thing that could happen with that is that it would go down due to revals, but that's not usually a huge significant change. So the revenues that we have are the revenues that we have. So your options here are to discuss any capital that you think that need to be changed, or any of the, you'll see in tab 2, it's the third page, I think, in tab 2. It has the breakdown of things that have been added for the most part in the budget. So we can do it. We can start by looking at any capital changes that you all want to make. Or did you have any other ideas?
Do you want to maybe just
A tip.
get us started where you are, where the dollars are? I mean, you just said we're in tab 2 already.
So what I was saying is, if you in the first tab is the revenues.
Right.
And so the revenues are not going to change unless you change the tax rate. So our revenues, as projected, are at $10,041,620. We have all the projections. We have received all of our projections. So this is what the revenues are, unless you make a change in the tax rate.
Most of the departments don't need anything, which is good. I want to look ahead to the future, take care of our future needs due to all this development, so we don't end up in the hole like we have a couple of times in the past 20 years. So if there's something you need, then you gotta let us know.
Yeah, one of the benefits to a reval year is that you do get, with a good reval, you do get more tax revenue. And so in this budget, you can see that we definitely got an increase in revenue for property taxes. Everybody knows that. One of the things that we had looked at a lot was the fire truck and the need that has been expressed to us for the fire truck. This is just an example of future capital that we know that we need. Richard has looked into this fire truck. We're in the process of, I think he's finishing up the specs for it and getting a more solid price depending on what council direction is. This fire truck, the fire trucks are increasing in price in a significant way every year. This fire truck that we're looking at is out 3 years. So if we order that truck now, we won't get it until 2026. And that's across the board for all of these fire trucks. So that's why we had put in a deposit in the fire department of $300,000 for every amount that you put in there, you get a discount. And it's depends on how much of a deposit that you make as to how much of a deposit or how much of a discount that you get. They base it on your deposit. So if we had continued that over the next 3 years, we wouldn't have to finance the truck because it would be roughly $875,000 if we did that now. And then after that, you still could add to your capital reserve. We have a capital reserve fund that has nothing in it. And we could add, this budget would give us the opportunity to begin adding to our capital reserve to plan for the CIP going forward. With the way that this reval is actually setting us up for a really positive way to complete our CIP, actually move forward and be able to accomplish the things that we need to accomplish for each department without struggling every year to find the money.
Yeah. I have a question. Is everybody following this?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
But I have a question.
Yes.
Could you highlight for us how our revenue has gone down 2.2 with the fact that we've got increased 1.5, 1.6 on the property tax, and we've got the federal government money coming in. So where are we?
So that is due to an appropriation and fund balance. So if you take out the bottom half, it's more significant. The $1.7 million was fund balance that we appropriated. If you look on page 2 of the revenues at the very bottom, that's where I'm looking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So 1.7 million is appropriated fund balance. So those are changes that we made throughout the year, but it's also our transfer to the dredging fund for the change in the dredging project. So that's an expense and a revenue in our general fund because you're pulling money out of the general fund, out of the fund balance, which puts it into the general fund. And then on the other side, it's spend it out. So it looks like a significant increase in revenue because it's basically pulling money into your checking account from your savings.
But I thought that the dredging had a whole separate fund associated with it.
Right. That's why I had to do that. That's why it's an expense on the other side. So when we got the new, the grant was updated in June of 2022. When the grant was increased, our match increased. And so we had to bring our match up to meet what the federal grant or the state grant was requiring us to meet. So when we did that, we had to pull from our savings into our general fund and then expense it to the dredging fund. So it looks like a revenue, but it's not. So that's actually, there's not that significant change there, even though it looks like it is.
Are you going to talk through each one of the tabs, each one of the
Are we going to go through each of the tabs?
sections of the budget?
The easiest thing to do is look at the capital for each department, I think, from the broad side of it. And then if there was any concerns that you had in operating, we also can look at the personnel separate because that's a different conversation. But in individual lines, as far as like individual expenditures, there's not a lot of change, but we can do that if you want to. It's mostly the bigger items that have changed, like the capital, things like that, even though they're not asking for a lot. But are you wanting to move on from the revenue side?
Can I ask a question?
I don't want to go on for revenue yet. I got some questions yet.
Yeah. I mean,
Go ahead, Tom.
yeah, finish with the revenue. Yes.
So if I compare 21-22 to what we have today, there's $1 million difference,
Right.
which is not that much considering what's happened to some of the other things. So I'm still struggling a bit with why we don't have more money.
So part of it is that, so if you look at that, we had in 2021-22,
Yeah.
we had a very significant building inspections revenue. So that has come down
Okay.
because there was like a boom of all of these permits that came in. We had 800,000
Yeah.
over 800,000 in that. So that's like a $350,000 difference right there where it came down. If the sales tax is increasing still, it won't continue to increase as much. The fire fees have gone up. And then you get like the non-recurring revenues, such as like sale of surplus. We didn't have a sale of surplus yet this year. And if you look at in 22-23, we also had we bought Majestic Oak. So the debt proceeds is also another revenue that's in 22-23. This current year, that's being compared to the future. That's you don't budget for that every year unless you know for a fact that you're going to have debt that you're going to, incur. And so that's $1.5 million right there. And that's on page 2, just above the
That's the
first total.
debt proceeds.
Yes.
line? Yeah, I was
So
gonna
that's
ask
where
about
we
that.
received the money for the purchase of Majestic Oak. So it came in on the one side and then went out to the other side.
Okay.
So if you look at just property tax, that is where our most significant change is.
Yeah, and that is significant.
And then everything else kind of goes up and down. Grants. So will have received $763,000 in grants this year that we won't receive next year,
Right.
or that we don't know that we'll receive next year.
Okay.
Yeah, let's keep looking for grants.
Does all of that make more sense? It's so many moving pieces. I know it is, and it's not apples to apples.
Yeah. No, I just was a bit surprised to see that we were down significantly from the year before.
Yeah, it's because of the grants and the debt and the fund balance, and it's the non-recurring. There's so many non-recurring that you can't bank on when you do a budget.
So I thought that we would have more money for us to consider what you mentioned earlier about the CIP and how we can prepare for other things coming in the future, as Charlie mentioned. But
Well,
looking
as I
at these
mentioned,
numbers, it's not all that much as I thought.
So we went through the budget last year. One of the things that I had expressed to everybody is that we last year had an operating budget without capital. So our capital's been coming out of fund balance. And so this is kind of showing that result, that our operating budget was our revenues. So we do have a change to the positive, where this year there's more capital in the budget. So we put $300,000 to put a deposit on a fire truck. So when you look at the difference at the bottom, if you look at it more of a revenue versus expenditure, there is an increase.
So the capital improvement, that's a separate fund, let's say. That's separate from the fund balance?
We have a fund that we don't have any money in that is for capital. It's a capital reserve fund that we can start adding to. We don't have anything allocated in this budget because we do have capital in here, such as the one that stands out to me is the deposit on the fire truck. That's $300,000. That's a one-time thing, and then next year that $300,000 could go into the capital reserve to help either purchase the fire truck or purchase other capital.
So where's that shown on
Yeah,
this revenue chart?
So that's after revenues. So if there's not any other questions about revenue, we can go.
I mean, I think sort of summarizing, we've got property taxes coming in. We had a major increase of 1.593 in property taxes. It goes down. Motor vehicle tax and penalties and those things remain pretty much the same. Our local option sales tax is still going up a little bit.
It is.
Got an extra 100,000 that go through there. But taxes on utilities, telecommunications, that's gone down a little bit. Video programming has gone down a little bit. Fire fees, as you pointed out, have gone up
about 100,000. That's mainly due to increased.
Yeah, that's not, we did not change any rates for that.
Yeah, but
That
that's
is
due
increased
increased
homes.
property that's in
Yeah.
our fire district. Okay. Building permits going down a little bit, reflecting that we're sort of over a hump in the major building that's going on. Those other fees are pretty standard. Our recycling program, is that expanding then? 130,000 in revenue?
It's, they, as they raise their rates, we've had to raise our rates. So it's not, it's not necessarily that it's the
It hadn't
program
really
getting
expanded, it's
bigger.
just become more
Yeah,
expensive.
becoming more expensive.
Okay. Police fines are up, violations, fire inspections are about the same. Okay. Mosquito funds the same. What we have is, as you pointed out, we don't have the grants that we had before, and we don't have donations yet. That we don't calculate that into our budget.
Correct.
Okay. We're
And
making
then the fund balance, we're not appropriating any fund balance.
Okay. Our interest earnings have jumped up from 2,000 to an estimated 50,000. That's because we have
The
interest
interest
now.
rate is,
And-
yeah, so this
okay.
year we brought in almost 75,000 so far this year.
Another 10,000 in miscellaneous revenue. What is?
So that's always, basically we always budget 10,000 in there because we get like the park benches, that's where that starts. There's like different things that go into there. Like copies. It's very random things that come in that don't fit into any other category.
Okay. Transfers from the accommodations tax, 250,000.
So
From the
that'll
accommodation-
be down. That's due to the accommodation tax is not really, it's not trending upward anymore. So I'm trying to keep that level with what we had budgeted this year.
Okay.
And there's more expenses in there.
And the appropriation from the fund balance, you mentioned that's tied into the dredging. All right. So that gives us a bottom line of revenue that we're planning on is 10,041,620. All right. That's. Any other questions about the revenue?
I'm good.
No?
Okay.
Okay.
So, want to walk us through how you want to spend it?
So in tab
And I
three-
suggest that sort of department by department or whatever.
so you don't want to look at the overview.
Yeah, first an overview. Yeah. Okay.
So in tab 3, on the 4th page of tab 3, you can see the general overview. We haven't made any reductions. That's one of the things that is shown on there. It just breaks it down in different ways for you. But if we're going department by department, you'll see that more clearly there. The most important page is the 4th page. And so this is where it breaks it out by department what the changes would be or are in each department's actual budget. So this is where I was talking about if you all decide to do on a COLA or a merit or the different capital items that departments have asked for. This is where this breaks it down by department for that. So
But this is only for next year.
this is
there's no-
23-24.
Right. So,
Yeah.
so,
So
there's
it
no
depends on-
comparison with last year or with this year, sorry.
No, not for capital. You can see that in each department when you look at it of what they spent in capital the year before.
Okay.
This is an overview of what has been asked for this year.
Gotcha.
So they're all quite basic. There's no capital in admin or finance, other than the personnel. And then in the police department, it was the radio and the vault systems for the vehicles, which was 52,000, and then the 3 vehicles completely outfitted for 218,000. And then the only other capital on here was the down payment for the fire truck, which you do not have to put $300,000 down. That was just something that we had talked about as with staff. And then we have engineering and design coming up for 3 different places. we do not have a number of what that looks like yet, I don't think. So that's what Lisa and I had discussed to put in that. You'll see that under public buildings. And so the total for capital will be 770,000. But like I said, these are not hard numbers.
Okay. The COLA merit and the budget for each department is the same rate across all departments.
So
what factor are
we
you
had
using?
done a survey of different towns around us, and we had touched on it a little bit in the last budget meeting. So somehow we got behind in the pay scale again with the neighboring towns, and on top of being behind in the pay scale for some of the towns, most towns are presenting another 5 to 6% merit or COLA with a 3% merit. I actually didn't bring that page in with me, but I think we had given it to y'all the last time of what that looked like. So this has 7% merit, or 7% COLA and a 3% merit. I don't know if you want to talk about that any more than that.
And the bonus is 500 a person.
I'm sorry.
The bonus is 500 a person.
Full time. Yes.
Full time.
And everything on this page is actually in the budget already. The totals that you see.
What amount of money do we have to put down for the fire truck?
We don't have to put that much down. It's definitely negotiable.
Okay.
It just, so the way that they do the discount on it is if you put $300,000 down, what was the 20% or 5%? So if you put the $300,000 down, then you get the discount. Yeah.
Okay.
And then if you put 200,000, you get a different discount. So that was more of a placeholder and up for discussion, because if you don't put it there, you can put it in the capital reserve fund. It can be a transfer to that. The only thing that I will say about a capital reserve fund is once you put the money in capital reserve fund, it has to stay there for capital. You can change what the capital is that you use it on, but it has to remain used on capital, which is never a problem. But
What rate do we receive on the capital reserve fund?
so I actually don't know the rate right now of what we're receiving for interest, but we're with the trust for the state.
So right now the capital fund has nothing in it.
Correct.
Nothing. What do you call our town savings account now?
Fund balance.
The fund balance. That's it. Yes. And how does that look with this budget?
This doesn't touch our fund balance, so
Doesn't touch it at all.
mm-mm.
Okay, good. Good.
I have a question about the merit pay.
Mhm.
Is that a pay raise or just a bonus that goes in?
That is the pay raise
That goes,
for the pay
Forever and ever.
scale.
okay. I have a concern. My thoughts, the way it happened last year, that 3% turned out to be a 3% pay raise for about 80-90% of the town, and the other few percentage got a 2.75. So there was very little about evaluating people for merit. It was basically almost an across the board 2.75 to 3% pay raise.
Well, each department head actually did do a full evaluation on each employee, and as far as like the deciding for the percentage of the merit, it was the department heads that they rate each of their employees.
Yep.
I will say, I mean, not that I know I'm biased because I am an employee, but I help other towns as well, and we have a lot of experience in Sunset Beach, which is a huge benefit to us here.
Why don't we just give them all a 10% pay raise and stop playing games?
Because it holds you. Yeah.
Huh?
Sounds great.
Well, I mean, that's not good budget management, and it's not necessarily good management. And it's we do have a great staff and all of that. But the reality is, if you look at it, does all of our staff, if they compare to each other, just stand there at the top line in terms?
I guess I can't talk for each department head, but
I mean, when you call it merit, that's another way to do it is allocate. If you're going to do a merit one, is 33% can be top level, 33% can be the second level, and 33% can be a bottom third, a 1%, 2%, 3%, as a different type of management tool. Just throwing that out as does anybody else have concerns with across the board manage?
I had concerns with the COLA increase the last time we went through this.
Well, that's the COLA is slightly different than the merit.
Well, when you combine it all together, like
Yeah,
you're saying, to
yeah.
the 10%, it's just that's just seems. Again, we went through this last year. I had similar concerns about a 10% ish increase. So regardless, that's going to be a rubbing point for me again. So
Well, we have to stay competitive with the other salaries. And I don't blame these guys. They got a couple of years experience and they want to go to, say, the fire, want to go to Horry County. I mean, that's a big raise in salary for younger people raising families. And I can actually remember how far back that was. Same with the young police officers.
but it's still a significant increase for those who are further down the line who have a higher salary.
Now, yeah,
If somebody's making $200,000 a year, 10% is a chunk of money.
yeah.
Well, fortunately, we don't have anybody making 200,000, but that's
You know what I'm trying? I'm trying to just.
yeah.
And
yeah.
as far as the merit goes, I don't
agree.
think any department head is just saying, I'm going to give everybody 3%. When the department heads rate somebody and they get 3%, I'm positive that they deserve it. And
Well, but we're
we all
basing it.
we all talk about how good a staff we have and how well they work together, and I want to keep them together.
Well, but you're basing it on the understanding that they could get more someplace else. And what's the basis of that information?
So one of the things that which I think that Chief Claymore is getting ready to say, one of the things that stood out to me was that we had done the pay study the year before last, and our police officer coming in without experience in Holden Beach will make $47,000, and Ocean Isle will make $47,000. We're over 5,000 behind them. We're at like what 42?
And that was 2 years ago.
Our pay study was.
That was
We just got ourselves up to them.
yeah.
And then they did a huge COLA and they moved their pay study ahead, and now they're ahead of us again. So they're at almost 47,000 and we're at 42 for starting. And then I know that some of the towns have where they add their experience of years, and you get a percentage for every year of experience that you have. And then on top of that, for which we have a certificate program, but you get another percentage on top of that for a certificate. So if you have experience, you're going to go somewhere that's going to give you the more money. But I think that's what Chief Claymore is saying.
And if I may, the other towns have that, have similar things into their pay scales. So certificate programs, longevity, those sorts of things. And last year when we did a COLA, it brought us up to a level playing field with what agencies were currently sitting at. But then come July of 23, those agencies got another COLA, which again put us right immediately back behind. So those agencies are ahead of us now, are contemplating a COLA now. So even if we get, what's the number you put in, 7% for our COLA?
7%.
So if you folks approve a 7% COLA now, and that goes into effect July of 2023, the other agencies that I polled also have pending COLAs. So even with a 7%, July 2023, if the other agencies' COLAs are approved, we'll still be behind. If I could speak on the merit for just a minute.
Just
Sure.
if at our beginning level we've got that $5,000 discrepancy, one of the things to do is consider adjusting the scale that we have and the beginning level that we have, which would be slightly different than trying to do an across the board COLA for everybody to get the bottom level to catch up.
It's not just the bottom level.
Yeah.
I mean, there's differences from the top to the bottom. So it's not just bringing up the bottom. And as Tara had mentioned, I mean, there's agencies where an officer with 3 years experience in Sunset Beach with certificates and training could leave and go in day one to another agency and make the same amount of money or more. And that's what I want to prevent. I want to retain the people that we have. And we do have good people. And when we evaluate our people, they're not all evaluated on the same criteria. So I don't look at a patrol officer that's got 4 years on the job similarly to a sergeant who has 10 years on the job. So there's different things that they're rated on when we consider the merit. So it's not just a carte blanche across the board. Everybody gets 3%. You know, hey, let's group hug. We're good. We're all good employees. We do have good employees. We train our employees. We send them to courses to educate themselves so that they can do the best job that they can to reduce liability in Sunset Beach. And we evaluate each one of them individually. And if they meet the criteria that is set forth in the evaluation, then of course they're going to get the merit that's deserved. And I can't evaluate a patrol officer the same way I would a captain.
Just a question about
Yes,
the
sir.
COLA. So when you look at what someone's paid, there's more to it than just the dollars, right? There are other benefits for 401ks, there's health plans and things like that. Is that considered with these analysis of how we compare one department?
Healthcare is basically the same across the board for
It is.
every town. We all get, every government or town employee gets paid health insurance. Every law enforcement agency is offered 5%. They're required by statute to be offered 5%. Most do match. Some do. Some of the towns that I've looked at, they give you 5% without a match. We do not do that. We're all part of the retirement for Orbit. Trying to think of the other benefits that we have here. What am I missing? And the leave it's very similar across the board, and that's also considered another benefit.
So it is comparable from
It is, yes.
from one town to the next. Okay.
So at what point do we have to make decisions on that?
I mean, today is really, we have to kind of get a direction of where you're going. The first meeting in May is our public hearing. And you can always make changes after that, but we try to, get an idea of where everybody's headed, what you're thinking. This is one of the big ones.
But at the latest, we have a meeting scheduled for tomorrow if we need it, right?
You do have a meeting tomorrow if you need it.
And the 17th, okay.
So one of the concerns that I have about, and I think I mentioned this before, I'll just reiterate, is with a COLA increase of 7%, that's a permanent increase. That, let's say the economy continues to have high interest rates, people continue to lose jobs, our accommodation taxes don't just stabilize, they actually decrease. That stays there. So I think I proposed this last year was versus such a large COLA increase, if you wanted to continue a merit increase or whatever, if it's a merit increase, it's an annually adjusted amount that can be modified going forward. But once you do the COLA, it's there.
The way ours works, the merit becomes just a pay raise. That's permanently part of the thing.
Okay. Or
If we give 3% and on top of the, just point out, if we give everybody 3%, it's
or rolled into the bonus then versus the merit. So if you have like companies now, corporations, they don't do so much COLA increases or things. They do like a one-time bonus. Even working for the state, that South Carolina, that's what they'll do now. They keep the COLA increases low, but they'll do a one-time bonus that's paid out. The funds for a given year could be the same amount of funds going out, but it's a one-time expense versus a reoccurring expense that occurs year over year. Just something to consider.
so that would change the salary level, or doing it that way would not change the salary level for people.
Right.
Just the actual amount of income they have at the end of the year.
And understand.
However, I mean, the counterpoint that would come up to that would changing that salary level or keeping that salary level the same would still have an impact on retention, recruiting, dealing with other agencies in a comparative mode if somebody's looking to jump ship or looking to join.
It is.
Yeah.
However, if our financial situation were not to remain as stable as it is right now or to deteriorate, then you're not having to cut staff. So that you're not having to make those hard choices. I brought this up last year, that if we continue to make these increases, something happens to where our funds don't remain steady, then you're in a situation of having to terminate employees, which is in worse situation in my mind. And I don't see a whole lot of strength in our overall economy right now.
So the merit increase is rolled into an overall compensation number for the next year's comparison? When you're talking about then the next year you want to do
It would
a
change
COLA.
the pay scale. Yeah.
Okay.
And so, like, if you were to look at the increase last year with the merit increases and the bonuses, I mean, that's your 20% increase in 2 years. That's unheard of.
And that carries
Especially-
forward year after year.
I mean, are you saying that we would do the same COLA year after year?
No, I'm saying that.
It would
Whatever.
change. It just changes the pay scale.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I especially understand the problems with retention in public safety and things like that. I don't want to minimize that. So it's kind of like you're saying, you can't look at your department and you have to treat everybody the same. Our detectives are different from patrolmen and things like that. I think as a council, we may need to look at public safety differently than other departments. I don't know how we do that and do it equitably or what have you. So we're trying to balance the understanding that certain departments are having a harder time finding employees, retaining employees, and potentially other departments, because job opportunities may not be the same across the board overall.
So do we have a recommendation or a consensus?
So you said this is one of the big ones for this
For
year.
discussion.
Yeah.
I mean, the rest of it, the different changes in each department are minimal.
So would we be okay with this kind of basic understanding right now, moving on to the other departments, just see what we're at as a whole,
Mhm.
and then circle back to this,
We can start. Yeah, we can come back
and then
to
just kind of, because as we're just talking through, that's going to be a lot to figure out.
Yeah, I'm okay with circling back.
So if
I
you
agree.
want-
I agree.
Tom?
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Okay.
I was just looking at the year-on-year comparison here, which I haven't really had a chance to look at with any. But
When you're looking at the year over year, the amended budget for 22-23, just keep in mind the expenditure side of that. It looks like a really significant increase, but it includes the purchase of a property and it includes the transfer of funds to the dredging. So there's non-recurring things that happen within these budgets too.
Where are you, Tara?
Yeah.
You were looking at the general fund overview. That's what Mr. Bormer was just talking about. It's in the third tab,
Yep.
the third page, where it says total general fund, major and non-major department.
Got it.
It's just a basic overview, and it goes all the way back to 1718, and kind of shows you basically the growth of the town.
So yeah, just if I look
Mhm.
at the police department, the change year over year is 11.25%.
Police department. Oh, you're on page
Which-
the first page of it,
I'm on page 8.
page 8.
So,
Oh,
so when I look
oh,
at the
you jumped to
increase,
tab
You're at tab 8.
tab 8, sorry.
Well, I guess we're gonna go through it by department.
Yeah.
So if we start with tab 4,
No, I was just looking at the number. What's the percent increase? And just pick the police just because I have it there. But if I look at the increase compared to a 22-23, it's over 11%.
you're looking at the increase from the budget of 22-23 to the budget of 23-24. Is that what you're saying?
Oh no, I'm sorry. Oh, so that's the increase over 22-23. Sorry, I used the wrong numbers then. So it's even probably more.
Yeah.
Oh, if I compare the 22-23, the increase comparison to a 22-23 to the actual, what we spent in 22-23. It's 11.25%.
We don't have an actual for 22-23 yet. If we're looking
no
at the same.
The actual is 21-22. We have the budget of 22-23.
Correct.
Yeah.
No, so the column that says amended 22-23 budget
Correct?
for the police department is 1806, right?
Oh,
That's
you're-
personnel.
for all of personnel.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the salaries and wages and wages.
So the
So it includes all the dollars
Right.
and the what we spend on everything, right? That's a
For
total
personnel.
spend.
for the personnel.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
That's what we're talking about, COLA and merit. So if I look at the number, which is 228.9, I just used 229 compared to 1806. It's 11.25% change.
So we
Understand?
yes. So
Right,
we've
yeah.
also added there's also part-time bumped up in there because of the parking enforcement. And this is where we added 2 employees as well. It's not just COLA.
No, I understand, but we're trying to compare. I think that the changes from last year to this year. That's what I was trying to do, compare to see how we're different.
But you really can't compare the 22-23 because we're still in that year. You're just looking at a budget. You're not looking at an actual. But those are budgeted numbers that we have in that column for 22-23. We don't know until we get to June 30 if we actually spent that more
Okay.
or less. So it's hard to compare that to an actual 21-22. Because 21-22 are the actual numbers that we did spend.
Mm-hmm.
The 22-23 is the budget for what we think we're going to spend.
Okay.
But until we get to June 30, we won't know that. But we're basing the 23-24 budget off of the 22-23 budgeted numbers, plus the increases that have happened throughout the 22-23 year to present.
Let's be take when I look at the salaries, I don't necessarily look at 22-23. I pull all employees current salaries, what the retirement looks like the rates, which they are very slow on giving us. We put the 401k, potential 401k in there because even if they don't get the match, I put the match in the budget in case they choose to get the match because you don't ever want to under budget it. So when I look at the salaries, I'm not looking at where we are now and just adding a percentage. I actually look at what everybody's currently making and then go from there. And I have a whole confusing spreadsheet to look at, and then what their elections are and things like that.
Okay.
So yes, I mean, totals, you want to compare and see what the difference is and things like that. But when I actually do it, I don't base it off of the budget. I base it off of where are we sitting right now as far as what the salary actually is.
Mm-hmm.
But when you go down, that's past that level, the comparison's a little bit more equal because we base that off of actual costs from the previous year. And if anything was like contracts were or services were added, things like that. So that's more easy to compare as far as that. But and the parking enforcement change has affected this some for that specific department and for accommodation tax.
Okay.
I would kind of like to run through the departments in the budget and see what's there and then come back with a whole picture
Okay.
to make an evaluation of what it is that we think we're doing, what we want to do.
Sounds good.
So I can knock town council out right away because the basic change in there is we have an election. And so we have to pay for the election services. That's the increase in that department. So it also increases the training and the travel a little bit, and the insurance seems to be coming up a little bit every year for liability. Are there any questions about the town council tab?
No, that's straightforward.
No.
So it's been a long time since the council got a COLA increase.
I mean, I could add it if you want it.
Moving on. No.
No.
Moving on. All right. Admin.
So administration, let's see. If you look at the operating, it really hasn't changed significantly. We brought the training down a little bit.
Admin is 2 people, right?
Yes, 2.
That's Lisa and Katie.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
So we put in a line for town shirts in there. With us having more events and things like that, each department is hoping to get just a couple of t-shirts to wear to the town events. That's an increase.
Now, you also put in there attorney fees. Is that?
I'm sorry.
That's our attorney fees.
That's also our attorney
That's where they're
fees.
located. Okay.
Mhm.
That bumps it up pretty
And I kept that
is that
steady.
close? Is that close to accurate?
Yeah. I mean, it varies every year. It's one of those things that we could have to adjust, but it stays pretty much right around there.
You feel comfortable with that number?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the only other change in here is like with the salaries, which we had already talked about.
And you have the contract services in there, which are all the,
Contract services
I
for
can see it over
this
there, yeah.
is Municode, the postage machine,
Mhm.
the minute tracker, and then the Laserfiche
Okay.
for record keeping.
Where do our folks in Raleigh come in?
What was that?
Raleigh? They can,
Attorney fees. They have to be in a separate line from professional services like that because of their reporting is different.
Okay. So that 150,000 includes that.
Correct.
Okay.
Any questions there?
No.
No.
Not for me.
Okay.
No.
Finance.
So our audit fees have gone up a little bit, which we saw that the other night. We also have different actuarial studies that we have to do now, so that also brings that up just a little bit. The training and certification will go down some. I had because this is me. I had a great class this time that had cost some extra money, and so that is bringing that line way down. With our taxes going up, our collection fee goes up, and the cell cost has changed some. I'm just trying to get that in line with that, and that's basically and then the salary is the only other change. Are there any questions in this one?
So this is finance department is you,
3 people.
Norma?
And Cinda.
I'm sorry, who was the third?
Cinda
Cinda?
and Norm.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
No, sir.
No.
Public infrastructure?
So we basically kept this one the same. It's been pretty in line. The 200,000 in there is negotiable. This is for engineering and design. We have no idea how much it's going to cost yet.
This is for the fire.
So
Fire-
this is for the park at Majestic Oak, for the public works at Fire Station 2, and the potential training center at Fire Station 2. Was there something else that I put there? Okay.
And so the big change from last year,
The big change from last year is the purchase of Majestic Oak.
okay.
That's what the debt service is?
Principal interest.
So it's the expenditure side. Yep. So when in government, you have to capitalize the whole thing when you buy it. So even though we had debt, so the whole entire purchase is an expenditure in the very first year. And that's because you have to bring in the revenue, which is the debt proceeds on the one side, and also the money that you're using for it, which was the grants. And so that total amount is on the revenue side, and then you have to have the total amount on the expense side. And then year after year is where you have your debt payments.
So that's the principal and interest there, 287.
Majestic Oak.
Okay. Okay.
Questions?
No.
Anybody else?
Nope.
Okay. Fire department or police department?
Police department. So there was an increase in the uniform line. This was partly due to the parking enforcement and having additional employees for that. So we put part of it in here. We put part of it in accommodation tax. It's the small increase in trainings. It's more trainings being offered off-site. We've slowly seen an increase in this. It dropped down with COVID, and now it's all coming back. The department supplies remain around the same. These are things that the department needs, but they're less than the $5,000 threshold for capital, such as like a taser. You can see that sort of off in the side. The Contracted services. What did we add? Ken, for contracted services. Increase in Central Square.
And in what?
Central Square, it's one of the softwares that the police department has to use. And then for this is the capital, where it was the radio at Town Hall that they have for when they come in, so they have service at Town Hall. The vault systems for their
Vehicles.
firearms in the back of their vehicles, and then the one F-150 and the 2 Explorers.
So how many authorized positions do we have now for police department?
The police department has 17 positions.
Okay. Do we have a specific number of part-time? Or is that just?
No, there's
just
no
a floating
specific number of part-time. There's a pool of money for that they use part-time for.
The money that is taken from the accommodations tax doesn't show up here?
No,
Where does that show up?
accommodation tax. It's like one of the last tabs that we have in here.
Okay.
We also are, if I can add, with our part-time staff, we're relying on them heavily for the beach, because we had taken, as you remember, the one person that we had assigned daily to parking and moved that person to the beach strand, and we're supplementing that with a part-time person, pretty much in a full-time capacity through the summer months. So that
Those
we
are
can have-
part-time police officers,
Correct, so that
fully
we-
trained and all that,
correct, so that we
fully
can have
equipped.
Correct, so that we can have 2 on the strand every single day. So what was on a as needed basis is now becoming it's a daily thing now, starting last Friday.
So is that part of the 17 number?
No, that's over and above. We have I have 5 part-time employees,
5 part-
two that are going to work the beach specifically. The other ones have full-time jobs, and they can't meet the demand that we have for the beach.
But the 5 part-time, you said at least one of them is really being treated as
2.
full-time.
They're working a full-time rotation through the summer, correct?
And that gives you 17 full-time police officers, yourself included and everybody else.
Correct. We have 17 and then a staff of 5 part-time.
And one
Administration.
admin, right?
Mhm. Full-time admin.
So the 2 that are treated as full-time on the strand during the summer, at the end of the summer, what happens to them?
They fall back into the rotation to be used as needed, so long as they haven't reached their 1,000-hour cap. If they reached their 1,000-hour cap, then see you in January.
Okay.
Those are the part-timers.
Those are
Correct.
part-time.
And,
Okay.
and the full-time officers move back into the full-time
move back
duty
into rotation.
rotation,
That's
leave,
correct.
training,
Yes,
all
sir.
that. Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
That's 1,000 hours per
For
what
the
year?
calendar year.
For the year.
Again, 1,000 hours are part-time. That's a
That's right.
part-time limitation.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Correct.
Anybody else? Any other questions?
No.
No.
Fire department?
So I made a mistake in the fire department and didn't add their increases into the bottom section of the budget.
Into what? Sorry.
Their operating increases, Richard has those, that they were minimal, but I was looking at the wrong column on his sheet and put in last year's numbers. So you don't have the current numbers for the operating in the fire department.
So you put in the 97.5? What? Just move it
We're going to walk through it.
Okay, good.
So I'll walk through my requested increases, and basically it's just keeping a little bit up with inflation on a couple of line items. And number one, uniforms, that's something that's been hit a lot with inflation, specifically this past year. So I'm asking for an additional 5,000 for that line item. Tires.
So that comes to 55,000 that you're asking
Yes,
for.
yes, sir.
All right.
Yes, sir. Tires, I'm sure everyone's aware of those increases. I've tried to adjust that for an additional 3,000, where that comes to 10,000. And then down to contract services, we recently did a new contract with similar to the police department on the CAD system. So asking for additional 2,000 for that. That brings that line item to 6,000. And then, I'm sorry, I skipped over vehicle maintenance and repair, an additional 5,000 in that, just to keep up with the parts and a bit of labor increases that we've seen over the past year.
So that comes to 40,000.
Yes.
So when Tara, when you said that we were within $5,000 of a balanced budget, did that include those numbers or
It
these
does not.
numbers? Okay, so we're not close to 5,000.
This is a total of, I think, 16,000.
So we're at 21,000.
16, isn't it? So 5, 3, 2,506.
15.
Okay, 15,000.
So Richard, that was uniforms?
Yes.
That was, what was the second one?
Tires,
Tires, that was
Tires.
it. Okay. The third one,
vehicle maintenance,
vehicle maintenance. And the fourth one,
contract,
contract. Okay, got it.
And contract ended up with,
6K.
so you added 2,500.
Correct.
15,500.
That's what you got, 15.5?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
So under the department equipment, we dropped down 206,000 that we had last year in the budget, and not there this year.
Correct. That was a large purchase last year. What was that?
Part of that was the grant.
The grant, partial grant funding on
The
the, air
hoses.
packs and hose.
And the extraction tools.
Okay.
Now, Tara, the debt service now for the two, we're still paying on 2 fire trucks.
2 fire trucks. One of them is paid off in 2025. And then the other one is later. It's 2020 or 2030. I think,
2030
something like that.
Yeah. You sent us an email.
Yeah.
Yeah. So why I'm asking that is if we put down the 300,000 for the new truck, which won't be delivered to 2025, and if we have one going off the books in 2025, is that what you're saying? Also?
Yeah, so one of these payments will come off in 2025.
And
We'll
we're
still have some debt service on there.
Okay. And
But if you all decide to finance the fire truck, it wouldn't happen until within a couple months of us receiving the fire truck.
Right. But potentially, if we could use the 300,000 each of the next 3 years,
You
we'd
wouldn't
pay
have
off
to
the new
finance
one,
any of
another
it.
one come off the books, so we only have one left on the books
Correct.
after 2025. Okay.
And additionally, we would be surplusing the apparatus that this is replacing as well. I really don't want to give you a broad idea because 3 years away, I
Right.
don't know what that number's going to be.
Things will change, but there'll be some money involved.
A little bit, yes.
Okay. All right.
Any other questions?
How many full-time employees do you have now?
I'm
It's here somewhere.
I have 4 current openings, so I'm at 17 as well. We're supposed to be 21.
I think you have an active recruiting program going on.
As much as possible.
Do you have any
Yes.
candidates?
One interview Friday. We've got a couple of Zoom meetings coming up in the future.
Are
from
your
some
part-timers
out-of-state,
able to fill in the gap to
As-
maintain full?
as much as
full
possible.
staffing?
As much as possible.
So how many part-timers do you have?
We've got 6 as well. 6, but are all full-time employees at neighboring departments. So depending on their workload at their full-time department, they come over and work as much as possible.
What's the full-time level? The full-time number of employees?
We're supposed to be 21. But
21.
Mhm.
That's with your 2 openings?
That's if we were fully staffed. Yeah,
I got you.
21.
They currently have 17 with 4 openings.
It's 4 openings, sorry. Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No.
No.
All right. Inspections?
So inspections is not changing very much. The tires is also increasing a little bit due to the increase in cost and where they are in the rotation for the vehicles. The annual fee for the software is the only other thing that's increasing, and that is Enfocus and iWork.
Okay. And staffing levels here?
Yeah, full-time employees.
So right now there is 1 opening, and you have 5 total. When you're fully staffed.
Yeah.
So there's 3 plus 1 opening. Does that include Cindy? Yeah, and half of Cindy Nelson is in this. The other half of her is in planning.
So then 4.5 is the
Yeah,
number?
with 1 opening. So they currently have 3.5, basically.
Right, okay.
And no capital purchases?
No, not
Alright.
this year.
Any questions?
No.
So the next tab is streets, and we added a 5,000 for professional services because in the past we've needed some small engineering things in this, and it's not always budgeted for, but it really needs to be in the budget. Uniforms cost has gone up some, so we increased that line just a little bit. And then equipment repair and maintenance, it seems to this year be trending up a little bit. The equipment's getting older, so we wanted to add some money to that line. And then dues and subscriptions was under budgeted, so that needed to be increased some. And there's no capital requests.
Now, the 160,000
Yeah.
paving and striping, that's not Powell, is it?
No, that's the town's portion of that.
Okay.
And that also is basically, we don't know what that cost will be, so it's a placeholder. But it matches Powell bill of what we're putting in from Powell bill. So essentially for paving and road construction like that, we have 320,000 total budgeted.
And allocated to the streets as DPW, right? Basically, 6 billets based on here, 6 positions.
I'm not sure actually.
Based on your bonus, it would be 6 positions.
I don't have my own.
Yeah, full-time.
And there's 2 part-time, right? 3 part-time.
So how many full-time?
6.
6 full-time. 3 part-time. Okay.
And all the equipment that they wanted, we told them to go ahead and buy out of this year's
Mhm.
budget. So nothing new at this point in time. Any other questions?
No, sir.
Okay, moving on, stormwater.
Yep, so stormwater, department supplies has come down some this year. They didn't feel like they were going to use that next year. There was an increase in the vehicle maintenance and repair. We put $160,000 in for the stormwater maintenance and their plan that they follow. I do not have any specifics on that. I know that the last time I had talked to Matt, he was waiting on pricing from customers. Or not from customers, from the contractors. I do not know if he's received that at this point. That is something that if we do receive that, we can update it. And this now has one full-time and one part-time.
So is our 10-year stormwater program, is that budgeted in here? Is that where the 160 is?
Yeah, but we don't have a specific amount on that. So that's a rough estimate. Matt is waiting on the pricing from the contractors.
So these are, what Matt is waiting for is moving forward with that 10-year plan. He's picking out certain projects for this coming year, and he's already gone out for getting.
He's not gone out for bids, but he's
Right.
reached out to try to get an
Okay.
accurate estimate.
Okay. We're still ahead in that, right? Aren't we still
Yes.
ahead of schedule on the 10-year plan?
So the
We-
decrease in the people here, these were people that had been moved over to Public Works?
So we had one person. We had two people. We had two full time in stormwater and part time, and one of the full time has gone to part time and works like full part time. So he works his maximum hours in stormwater each year.
So digressing just a little bit, is Matt working on an extension of the stormwater plan? You know, or adding in as time goes on and the need comes up, he handles stormwater issues that were not originally on the plan or were further down the road in the plan. So it's kind of being, at this point, if we're down to less than 2 years in his plan, you know, expanding that back up into an amended now 5-year plan from now.
Yes,
He's working on
he's
that.
working with McGill to reevaluate
Mhm.
where we are and where we need to be, including the Oyster Bay stormwater issues that were dumped on us by the state. So they're looking to redo all of that into a new plan.
Okay, good.
The Oyster Bay project, which I'm familiar with that. From what I understand from the neighbors that are directly involved, one that all this comes together in his yard, that Riptide was going to fix that. And after the change in the ruling from Raleigh, now it's our responsibility.
Correct. I mean, I don't know about Riptide saying that they were going to fix it, but the state revoked any stormwater permits past 92, and those then become the responsibility of the municipality.
That is very true.
Are there any other questions on stormwater?
Anybody else?
No.
Thanks.
Right. Sanitation?
So sanitation, this is the other side of recycling. So recycling has increased in price, and so our revenues increased. We had to increase this side of it as well. That's really the only change. Leaf and limb is remaining the same, and our landfill and dumping fees or whatever they're called, they're all remaining approximately the same.
So again, the
It's-
extra 15,000 was what? I didn't quite.
Increases in recycling costs each year.
Okay. Any questions?
No. No.
Environmental protection?
So, one of the things that happened this year as we faced that most recent hurricane is that we are not getting funding from FEMA for our cleanup. And so that's one of the reasons why we try to keep in the natural disaster possible reimbursement line, is so that we have something budgeted for that. We were reimbursed for employees that worked, but not for leaf and limb, which I will be coming to you in the next month for an adjustment, because it was a significant amount of money. It was over $100,000.
Why the change? You know?
There wasn't enough damage on the coast for, we were the only ones that incurred that kind of damage. Nobody else did, and so FEMA did not enact that. What's it called? The section, or there's like categories. So they did not enact that category for us to apply for reimbursement of our expenditures. So it's on the town. We aren't going to get reimbursed.
This is all
for
the
it.
cleanup,
The cleanup.
picking up the leaf and limb
Mhm.
as a result of the storm debris.
Yes.
Wasn't it a federally declared disaster?
It was, but they do not have to open each category. And so they did not open the category for cleanup. But they did open the category for emergency response, which is, it's not necessarily called emergency response, but our staff that had to work out here, work overtime, be on site. Sorry.
So the 50K in there is for us to be able to do that,
Just,
or to get started
yeah, so
on
we
it?
have something there.
Okay.
Because we have nothing in there this year, and we ended up with expenses. But I'm gonna bring that to you for a budget amendment.
Questions?
No.
All right. Planning?
So planning, we put in for trying to finish out the UDO and our services with the COG. That has decreased some because we're getting closer to the end of that. Training, I believe that Chad is going to be pursuing more training, so we increased that line some. They now have a vehicle in planning, so you'll see the increases for those. They won't use a whole lot of gasoline, so we budgeted around $2,000 for that. It will need tires, and then it's going to have the basic repair and maintenance, so that's another increase in there. And then in advertising, that's for promotional products for the ERC and different, like for their festival that they have coming up, things like that. So there's actually money allocated for them to do outreach, have different educational materials, and to be able to put on their event. And that's really this is 1.5 employees.
Questions?
The professional services line for Wes?
So it's Wes and the Cape Fear Council of Governments.
Okay.
It's things like attending planning board meetings, the UDO, any consultations, things like that.
Okay.
But the big expenditure has been the UDO update.
Yes.
Yes.
Anything else? Any other questions?
No.
Next, Powell bill.
So Powell bill, I equal it to what our revenues are. Revenues are projected to last year, or this current year, were received about $168,000, and it'll be approximately the same next year. So just increasing that to $160,000. This is its own fund, so the revenues and the expenditures will wash. We do have a fund balance in this. I cannot think of what it is off the top of my head right now, but I want to say it's around just under 300,000. If I'm being conservative with what it is, it's probably a little bit more than that. So if there is a bigger project that we need to do, we can pull from the fund balance, but that would come to you all with a specific project. There is not a specific project scheduled for this money yet.
Now, we did not spend the Powell bill money
Right.
last year
So this will
because
go
the
into the
costs
fund.
were
Yeah.
too high. Okay. So that went into this extra money in the future.
Yeah, we have a Powell bill is its own fund, so it has its own fund balance
Mhm.
that I have to do a whole separate report self audit on every year.
Okay.
But that doesn't show up as a part of our expenditures.
No, it's completely separate. It has its own revenue and its own expenditures. It's its own fund by itself. This is separate from general fund
But it's got to be funded
from the
through
state.
by the state.
Yes.
Yeah, so we get a Powell bill allocation
I got
every
you.
year, and it has to have its own fund. So
Got
it's
it.
completely separate from everything else that we have.
Okay.
In a matter of practice, we usually budget in our infrastructure a matching amount,
Mhm.
like we did 160,000 this year.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
No.
No.
Sunset at Sunset.
Sunset and Sunset, we increased some this year due to the change in venue with going to the park and the need to have buses.
We
So
need to have what?
the buses
Okay.
for parking. So we started that last year. We didn't get to see how that was going to work last year, but we do have a company that we're working towards using, and they have increased their prices this year. So that's approximately what our increased price is going to be.
And our plan is to have free bus service, not charge people for using the
Correct.
bus. Okay. Does this also include cost for, do we try to calculate cost of the town for like this big special event? The extra traffic control, the extra cones and stuff like that? We just
Mhm.
take that out of Hyde?
Yeah, that just
And
goes out
like
of
any
general
other
fund.
town special event?
Yeah, that's general
Okay.
fund.
Any other questions?
No.
Accommodation tax.
So accommodation tax has basically been coming in at the same amount this year versus last year. It is up a little bit, but I think that keeping the trending on track with what it is in the current year is the best option. I did increase the pretty much everything because we've added parking enforcement, but also kept beach patrol on there. So there's parking enforcement coming out of here. We also added part-time for events in here. And let's see. We added another $15,000 to department supplies due to more hands being in there as far as like adding parking enforcement, and the price is also increasing with this. So the it's just basically gone up. Our second pickup has gone up in price, which is part of the contracted services. The concert series, the reason for the adding of that is having other town events and wanting to make sure that we had money in there. That is just a guess. That's not really based on much of anything other than the increase in the band prices. also is part of that. This was a lot of hands in this budget. Oh yeah, that's what I'm saying. At all other town events, including if you all decide to do the anniversary celebration again, or something like that.
Where does the walkway maintenance show up here? Does
I'm
it-
sorry, what is it?
Walkway, the walkway, the repairs that we.
That's the beach erosion fund. So
Next
that's
tab.
The next tab.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Control streets.
Now, Terry, you also have the transfer to reserve there. You're hoping to be able to transfer that at the end.
We typically do
Okay.
have. So what that is I look at what the revenues are coming in now, and then I budget based off of what I think the revenues are going to be next year. And I really do think that they'll be very similar to this year, which is right around 775,000 for this portion of occupancy tax, which is the 3%. And then based on what everybody tells me that they feel like they need in this budget, whatever the difference is, that's what we transfer to general fund, and we have the authority to do that. So then you'll see in the revenue section of general fund the transfer in amount of the same amount as part of our revenues for general fund.
Okay.
So anything we add to this takes away from general fund transfer.
And you've got to be flexible in this account, obviously.
Yes.
Things will change, probably. Okay. Okay.
Are there any
I
specific
missed
questions on
something.
this
I
one?
missed something in the process. 180,000 for the contract services.
So part of
That's-
that is our increased prices in the second pickup going up. The Big Billy's price has gone up.
Okay.
That's pretty much it.
All right. All those things are
Yeah,
calculated
it's
above.
looking at the trending of
Yeah.
of the services, the contracts that we
Okay.
have. And then I did just receive all of our nonprofit applications, and the total of the requests is $11,312.48. So that number on here, that would be the most that number would be, where it says 15,000. So that, I mean, depending on what you all decide and for that.
Hmm.
But I just got most of them, so I can go over with you what those requests are. I don't expect you to make a decision on that today because you don't have the information in front of you.
Yeah. When are we supposed to incorporate that then? That
That's the
decision?
15,000 under the tourism funding outside.
No, if you don't expect us to make the decision
I
today.
just, it's because I just got most
Yeah,
of them.
When
So,
when do we do that?
I mean, I'll have them to you by the end of the day today, and at the next budget meeting, you can discuss what you want to do with that.
That's less than they requested. Last year, we didn't allocate out all of the money
Correct.
that got requested from nonprofits. So this time, we just have significantly lower amount of request.
Mhm.
Is that because of the increased complexity of the nonprofit
Potentially.
request?
I can give you an overview real quick of what. So, Life Care, which is the for the veterans. Let me say really quick. So they have requested 2,500 this year, and they are able to show that they have helped 97 residents, I think it was, in Sunset Beach. Yeah, 97 residents from Sunset Beach they actually assisted this past year. The planetarium is requesting 5,000 for what they have in town. The Literacy Council is requesting 3,000. And I have not gone through theirs yet because I actually just got that one. And then the Old Bridge is requesting $812.48, which they are located in Sunset Beach, and they're wanting us to help them purchase a computer.
It's far fewer than last year. It is fewer than last year.
Yeah.
Total number.
Okay. Any other questions there?
No.
No.
Okay. Last tab is beach erosion fund.
Yeah, so beach erosion, keeping the budget the same, this is the 2% of the occupancy tax. We do not have a number for this. So this is, in order for us to move forward with this is one of the contracts that we have to bring to council for your approval. And when we would do that, when we know how much it is, because we will most likely have to pull from the beach erosion fund balance to complete the projects that we have out there, that's when this would be adjusted. So we know that there will be a budget amendment with this after July 1. And this is budgeted with expected revenues.
And we are also applied for a grant for the beach walkways, or are applying for a grant for the beach walkways. Okay.
And we put out we're looking for 8 walkways this year, right?
Mhm.
That was
Yep.
what we did back in February. Any questions there?
No.
And that also doesn't affect general fund.
Where would whatever money would be needed for the Majestic Oak
So that is
renovation, let's say?
the only thing we budgeted for Majestic Oak in this budget is engineering design and development.
Okay.
Until we get through that process, we don't really know what the construction will look like out there.
Okay.
You all will be part of that process.
Okay.
And that's actually not, other than the engineering. We're not anticipating a whole lot of expenditures this coming fiscal year.
Correct.
That's
And
right.
we can also apply for another grant after we know what the project will look like.
And that's when we'll go through public hearings to get
Yes.
inputs on
This is like
what
the
the citizens
research.
want to do
Yeah,
inside Majestic Oak.
right.
Is this something you want to do this calendar year, or maybe wait another year to do that? As far as applying for a grant.
We will start, we'll go out for an RFQ later in the summer that will hire the consultant engineer to help us work through the process. And during that process is when we will apply for the grant for construction. And that's when the community meetings will happen,
Okay.
surveys for what the general public wants to see in the park, in addition to what you all want to put there.
I believe the grant would be due next May. I think that's the deadline.
I think so too.
Okay.
So it gives us time
That's
to
a good plan.
walk through the process.
Good. Let's do it right.
That whole area will be returned to its native state, let's say, once the dredging's done.
Yes, it will.
Are the dredgers going to keep equipment out there in the park all summer long, or are they going to remove everything?
Last I heard, they were removing everything.
So now what?
So now this is, you've gone through every department. You kind of see what's in every department. This is where you start discussing, I guess, the hard decisions. If there's anything that you want to change or remove or adjust?
Any comments, questions, suggestions?
Tara, I think the bottom line, this is me talking, but the bottom line is going through each of the departments, going through each of these sections, all 19 of them. You have done a thoughtful job of putting together this budget, and certainly I think the expenditures are needed. There's a lot of, again, when we make capital expenditures there, we're making those things in this budget one time, and they're good for the future. I feel good about what you did, and feel good about overall budget. We certainly have to make the decisions regarding the pay there, but I think you put together a good budget, so I thank you for that.
The good thing about here is that each department has a huge input into what their department looks like. So it's not Lisa and I looking at it saying this is what you need. We have multiple meetings with each department, trying to figure out what each department needs, and what's going to change, because everybody knows their department better than anybody else would.
There's nothing standing out to me that I would say we got to cut this, we got to get rid of it, that type of thing. Nothing stands out to me like that. And plus, there is some adjustments here we can make going forward. With, for example, use the fire truck again. We don't have to put that much money down, but do we need? Is it better to do that and move forward? Maybe trying to pay it off in 3 years instead of paying it off in 20 years or something.
Well, that's one of those that you can decide to, if you wanted to move it into a capital reserve fund and gain interest on it. That's an easy thing to change.
Okay, so
Anybody else?
where does this capital reserve fund show up?
We don't have any money in it yet.
And
it's
we
the
don't have any
actual-
money in it, and we don't have anything budgeted here to put money into it.
It would be a forward capital. So what it would look like in your budget would be a transfer as an expenditure. So it would be transferred to capital reserve fund, and then we would do a budget amendment in that as you would use it. It would be a fund balance. It would have its own fund balance. It wouldn't actually have a budget until you decided to use it.
And what we really need to be doing is looking at our asset replacement schedule, and you all need to be putting money in that every year.
Yeah.
For the past, the general fund has always been used to fund capital as one-time purchases. There has never been a savings account set up for asset replacement.
And this budget does not reflect setting up such a
No,
savings account.
it doesn't. No.
What's the amount in our reserve now?
Well, so we had done the transfer out of it for dredging. And then we did the transfer in after the last budget amendment. So I don't have a solid number for you. It's usually just a snapshot at the end of the year, but I can bring that back to you. I want to give you an estimate of around 6 million,
6 million.
but don't hold me to that.
Yeah.
That's
No,
just
I-
off of the top
that's
of my
fine.
head. Very, very like rough estimate.
So then, based on these numbers here, the tax rate would remain the same,
Correct.
and we've essentially spent everything that's reflective of that.
Correct. If you make no changes.
Right.
But
No.
with the changes for the fire department, that was like what, 17,000? It's
Right.
not in this.
So it would
we're
be a
20
$12,000 difference.
Yeah, we're
that-
like, and with the 5,000 you said earlier, we're 21,000 over right now.
No, we had 5,000 over. So it would be a $12,000 change.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay.
And regarding salaries, while I appreciate your sentiments with looking forward and potentially the economy going south, and we would have to let people go. While that is a hard decision, we have to stay competitive with our neighbors. I mean, we are losing to Horry County, we're losing to Ocean Isle, we're losing to Holden, Wilmington, and we're just not competitive. So we have at least got to equal the mark.
Okay, understood.
Regarding the fire truck, so if we did not go with 300,000, let's say we went with 150 on that, that still locks in the rate or the total charge for the truck, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and the interest rates for those are being a government agency, are significantly lower than regular free market, correct?
As far as if we financed it
Yeah.
later, yes, yeah, they're usually significantly lower. We would not have to finance any of it until 2026.
Gotcha. And I was just wondering if that would allow us to get some money in this, get the ball rolling on the fire truck, as well as put some money in this capital improvement fund. I do think that's a better way to go going forward.
Yeah, absolutely would.
You said absolutely would be a good way.
You
to go.
yes. What if you did the 150 on the fire truck? We can do a transfer to the capital reserve fund, and that would start the capital reserve fund balance.
Which would also generate some interest. So,
Correct.
and I assume we generate more interest than what we pay with the governmental rates.
As far as the interest on what we put in there,
Yeah.
yeah, the interest rates right now are climbing and are going to continue to climb. We've done well. Like I said, year to date from July right now, with what we have in there, we have approximately overall in all of our accounts low to 7 million, I want to say, and we've gotten around 75,000 so far this year.
Thank you.
I like Jamie's thoughts. I don't know.
Is there a downside of changing the deposit to 150K and putting that 150K back into the capital reserve fund?
The discount, that's the change. So it would
What's
be
the impact on the discount?
I can't remember what the percentage was. So at 300,000 deposit, if it's at 5%, it's a $15,000 discount on an $875,000 truck.
That's 300,000.
That's yeah.
That's 300,000. Did I say that wrong?
Well, no, you did. I'm just making not.
If we did the $300,000,
You get a 5%
so if you do
discount.
half of that, it'd be half of the discount. Yeah. Was it 5%? Like 2 or 3. 5,000. Okay. 25,000. Okay. It was a specific percentage. I can't remember what it was, and my phone is dead. So.
Can you get those facts
I
for
can.
us so we can?
Yeah.
Maybe we don't. Maybe we table that for now, but can we get the facts on that so we know exactly what we're going to be doing here if we go to 150 and what it's going to cost us? What's the pluses? What's the minuses? That kind of thing. I don't know. What everybody else feels.
I agree with that.
I didn't hear what Richard was saying when he was coming up.
He has the specific amount. I didn't bring it with me.
And all that we will negotiate as much as humanly possible when that time comes to get the bigger discount rate. But we were looking at saving about $25,000 if we put 300 down.
Okay.
So, the manufacturer wants to make a little input since it's going to be, 3 years out. They want to make a little something for us. And that's could be enticing for people like us. So, but when we get to that point, we will negotiate to see if we can do a lesser fund and bring those numbers to you at that point. But it's kind of what it's going to be if they allow us to negotiate it all at that point.
So he didn't say to you, if you put 300 down, you're going to save 25,000. You put 200 down, you're going to save this. You're going to put
exactly.
He did not say that.
He didn't say that to you.
Okay.
Could you contact and say, hey,
Of course,
here's our choices here? And
Of course.
the big thing is to put some money down so we got the truck coming, obviously. But
Exactly.
if we can play this off and put some money in the capital fund, that would be
Of course.
good too.
Thank you.
Thanks, Richard.
And the other in engineering and design that we put in streets, right? The 200,000
200,000.
Public building.
public buildings is the renovations of town hall. The engineering or consultant for renovations to town hall.
That's in here?
Yes. We had the park and public works, but I forgot the third thing. And
That's
what
under
it is.
administration?
No, it's under streets.
No,
No,
it's under
public
public
buildings.
buildings. It's
Sorry.
Under what?
What number is it on?
tab 7,
7? Okay.
and it's the amount that's in there is it's under
200.
department infrastructure because any engineering and design we do goes towards that asset.
Mhm.
So it's for my accounting side of it for the capital assets and our fixed asset schedule. So that's why it's budgeted where it is.
Okay, so we have Park, Public Works at Fire Station 2, the Fire Station Training Center,
And then
and
also
and
town hall.
town.
Town hall.
Town hall renovations.
And that's all at 200,000.
Mhm.
Okay. Thank you.
Looking ahead, if we come up with a number for renovations, say $2 million or whatever it happens to be, how do we go about funding that? We go get a mortgage or a loan, or
You can.
so it's all to be determined.
Mm-hmm.
How did they handle financing of this building?
I don't have any idea.
We're not paying anything on it right now, so I'm not really sure. I've never looked back into how town hall was financed. Sometimes they do have grants and things like that for town halls sometimes too. But there's different things we can look into. And I know that there's different types of loans, I believe, for the public buildings.
Tara, do you have any other areas of the budget that you know of that we just went over that could also be adjusted a little bit to go into the capital fund? Or is that the fire truck was the only thing that really stood out in my mind? But
It was because the other capital that we have is things that they're asking for right now.
okay. Yeah.
So that would essentially be you'd put it in there and then take it back
It's gonna
out.
go. Okay, thank you.
And truthfully, what we need to do is develop a town-wide asset replacement schedule. And that money needs to be allocated to the capital reserve annually. So that when you need to replace a car or a truck, the money's there because you planned ahead for it. Instead of always dipping into fund balance for those big purchases.
And you know what's coming each budget year for the most part. You have a better idea of what is coming next year when you have a town-wide actual plan set out like that.
And we can look into developing that.
Yeah.
The police and fire are really good with their replacement schedules already.
I think that's a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
So for the last number of years, within our budget, we have accommodated whatever replacement schedule is without doing a planning ahead with a capital reserve, because our income has been sufficient to allow us to purchase those things we need.
Yeah,
As best I can tell, we've not approved any major piece of equipment or capital that's been requested for quite a number of years. So,
And a lot of the reason why you towns don't really like to put into capital reserve funds is because you can't use it for anything else. After you put it there, it can only be used for capital. You couldn't take it back into fund balance and use it for operating. It has to stay there and it has to be used for the purchase of capital, period.
What's the advantage then to having that?
That you always have the money there to replace your capital.
No, I understand that part, but is there any other advantage?
It's if you have a strategic outlook over the next few years, it makes budgeting more strategic.
Yeah.
like it's you really want to when you start getting into the CIP and doing that type of thing, you really want to look 5-10 years, not just next year. So you have like a 10-year outlook of what it should look like. And so if something was to happen and you needed these cars, you have that in that replacement schedule. And
So
you're
we
not
have
trying
a
to piece it together.
So we have a plan for what will be needed, but we don't have the funding that's already allocated for that.
Right.
So couldn't we
You can
take a
just keep it
slice
in.
out of our general fund and just reallocate it into our capital improvement plan?
You can do that, but then it takes away from your fund balance percentage as well. Because it's not part of your fund balance anymore.
And how may that hurt us?
So it's one of our health factors. So
For the
when
audit, right?
when we get audited,
Yes, okay.
and when we go for debt, if we
Okay.
need to finance something, they look at the health of the town. They look at our audit. They look at our unassigned fund balance, things like that. A lot of people do just use their fund balance as their capital reserve as well. As long as you know that's why you have a strong fund balance, is to finance things going forward. So
In essence, isn't that the way we've been operating then?
it is the way we've been.
Yes.
operating.
Yes.
Yes.
It's just another option for you all. It's not something that you have to do. It just sets it aside. Especially if you're saving for something like a fire truck. I mean, then you know it's there and you know you have the money when you need to go pick up the fire truck.
What the police and fire do now is pretty much that, right? With the plans that they do. Although we take the money if we don't have a capital fund to do the thing, we do it on a budget every year. But they do have quite a nice plan of what's needed over the next X number of years.
And it's fluid. It can change every year. Obviously, with the police department, they had anticipated a certain amount of years. They've gotten a few more years out of each of the vehicles, so it's fluid. It changes.
So is it accurate to say get to the right page, revenue? That we're anticipating a big increase in property taxes, right? And yet with that increase, our budget has absorbed and used all of that increase.
Honestly,
What would we have done if we had not had a revaluation like that? I mean,
you would have had to raise taxes
Or cut something.
or cut some
Services.
things. Yeah. Because I mean, with the capital that's in here, it is 770,000. I mean, that's a chunk of it right there. But it's
What is 1 penny in the tax rate again, cash-wise?
I'm sorry,
What is 1 penny in the tax rate? If we go
270,000.
207.
That's at our 98% collection rate.
Mm-hmm.
270,000.
Yes.
That's 1 cent.
1 cent.
That's a big hop over last year too. So our capital improvement represents 3 cents of our tax percentage, our capital outlay. So what do you need from us now? General consensus that we like this budget or we don't like this budget or other things to change?
Yeah, so I need to be able to go back through the budget and make whatever changes you all want made at this point so that I can bring you basically a balanced budget. Because we want by the first meeting in May, when we set the public hearing, we really want to have what the budget is going to look like, unless at that point there's some big change that you want to make. But this is like, we really want to try to narrow it down as much as we can at this point for any changes that you foresee right now.
And we have 2 other meetings scheduled before May 1st. It's tomorrow and April 17th or something like that.
17th.
And I don't think we'll need 2 meetings. But
Hmm.
I don't think we'll need 2 meetings, but
Well, April 17th is when you come out with whatever changes and
Yeah, I would
pretty
say-
much your final proposal
Yeah,
based on all guidance we have provided.
I would say if there's things that you want changed or that you want me to work on, we would do that now and then bring you a more balanced budget on April 17th. I don't know unless you wanted to make more changes tomorrow. I don't know as if tomorrow would necessarily be needed because that would give me the opportunity to change everything, send it back to you tomorrow or this afternoon, depending on what's changed. And then I would think by April, it just depends on what you all want to do.
well, we've got to get some information back on the fire truck with the capital.
Right.
We got to make decisions on the bonus and merit pay. Those are 2 things. What else? Any other decisions left on the table?
I don't think that there was anything else in
Yeah.
question.
I think those are the big ones.
Yeah.
Could I request a short recess?
Sure. Do a 10-minute recess.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
I can probably pull up the fire truck.
paper?
Yeah, so what that is a comparison of where we're sitting with the rest of the towns in the county for tax rate in 2022. Obviously, 2023 has not been decided yet by anybody. So we are actually sitting the lowest for the services that we offer. The towns that have a lower tax rate than us do not have their own police departments. They do not have their own fire departments. The services are not comparable. And so I'm not that I necessarily am going to do anything with that. I just kind of wanted you all to see where that sits right now.
It's a good place for comparison to see what's going on.
Right.
All right. Anybody have any questions at this point in time?
I do have the information on the fire truck.
Yes, please.
Yes.
So Richard and I were both way off. So if we were to pay off, if the truck, say the truck was $1 million, and we were to pay off the whole truck up front, that's where the $20,000 came from. So you get a 2% discount on the amount of money that you put down as a deposit. So if we were to put down $250,000, it'd be a $5,000 discount. If we were to put down $300,000, it'd be a $6,000 discount. You only get a discount on the amount of money that you put down towards the fire truck, and it's 2% of the amount of money you put down. So if we did $150,000, it'd be a $3,000 discount. But you have to put some deposit down in order to hold the truck, but it's not as significant as we thought it was.
If we take that $150,000 and we put it in a bank for 3 years,
Yeah, I don't.
what kind of interest do we get in terms of what our
I don't know.
what we save on it?
But the difference is not that significant.
It seems to me that that's not significant,
Right.
and that we should take that $150,000 and put it into the start of our capital
Yes.
improvement fund.
So I will do that.
Does that
That makes sense.
does that make sense to everybody else?
Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. With that information.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
Good idea on your part there. So any other questions at this point?
No, sir.
I sort of have a question looking to the future. Our budget reflects, particularly the taxes coming in, a major. We got increases in property tax money, but the plan, the budget we have here keeps us at the same tax rate. We also have in the budget planning to do the engineering for Majestic Oak, for Public Works Building location, for the Fire Station 2 training facility, and for redesigning and modern updating Town Hall. So could you sort of explain the rationale why we are not reducing taxes at this point in time? And if we're doing all this design work, what kind of cost are we projecting? Notice we don't have any specific bids. And over what kind of timeline out into the future? If we design this park, the building facility, the fire training facility, and the town facility.
Correct. We are not recommending a tax decrease due to the expansions that you all will be looking at in the near future. Public Works is not only relocating, but it is enlarging to accommodate for all of the equipment that we have to be able to be housed inside instead of our expensive equipment sitting outside in the weather. In addition to that, we are also looking at establishing our own fuel area so that we won't depend on the county for fuel anymore. We'll have our own fuel tanks. And they'll have a training facility for the fire department will be on that property. The burn center will be on that property. Then the renovations to town hall will be increases to office spaces and meeting spaces within town hall. And then the Majestic Oak property development of whatever that looks to be. Our rough guesstimate for those projects are about $8 million. So with that said, that is why we are not recommending a tax decrease at this point.
And that $8 million would be starting when, and would be the $8 million paid all at once, budgeted out over a number of years?
I would anticipate starting in the 24-25 budget, and it would be my recommendation to do all three projects at the same time with financing.
We have to move forward on Majestic Oak for sure.
You know, we only have 5 years. We have 5 years to construct the park on Majestic Oak for the grant.
Starting a year ago.
Starting a year ago.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then with town hall, we are busting at the seams now. You know, everybody's sitting on top of everybody. We've got storage everywhere that you shouldn't have storage.
We have, there's at least one office that has 3 employees in it.
Right. So that has got to be done sooner than later. And then Public Works is busting at the seams as well and need to move.
So you don't see any prioritizing of these 4 areas. Obviously, like Tara said, the park's got a time frame where it must be finished in order to get money. We got 4 years left on that. But DPW, fire training, and town hall you don't see a priority listing. Like if we must do one, we got to do this next, and we got to do this next. Or
Well, Public Works is where it is, but what you're doing is you are jeopardizing expensive equipment because we have nowhere to store it. So that to me is a priority. But you've also got town hall and the needs of us to be able to function and work. So to me, those two are pretty equal. The fire training is definitely needed because right now Richard is sending crews not only out of the county but out of the state to train, which is taking personnel and apparatus out of service while they are training, and all this training is required. There'll be some training facilities that the police department can also use. So they're all pretty high on the priority list to be completed as soon as possible.
What impact does the dredging money have? We're projecting to complete the dredging next summer.
The dredging will be completed by March 31st of 2024.
And we have a dredging fund where we've been paying out, and we have 1.7 million in this year's budget showing those payments. The town is paying ahead on the cost of dredging, but starting next summer, we will put out a dredging assessment. Is that correct?
Correct. Once the dredging is completed, Tara will then reconcile with the grant, and the grant funds will reimburse the 2/3. After that, I anticipate that we will take whatever funds are left in the dredging fund and move it back into general fund. In addition, we will issue, you'll levy the special assessment at that point. And those assessments will go out to the 334 affected properties. And then you gave them up to 3 years to pay that. I anticipate a lot of people will write a check and pay it. There will be some that will take advantage of the 3, and all of that money will go right back into the general fund as well.
So in practice, that money could become available to help cover some of this future construction and infrastructure that we're going to
Correct.
to build.
Correct.
Right.
And in addition, we would not delete or eliminate the dredging fund because moving forward, it has been the plan the entire time that this project has been going on since 2012 to establish a dredging district and to assess annually the affected property owners so that when we develop the plan of when we're going to dredge in the next 5, 7, 10 years, just like Ocean Isle does, Emerald Isle, Holden Beach, they all have established plans and their dredging is automatic. That money will come to the town annually through collections with the taxes and will be put into the dredging fund so that when the next dredging occurs, the money will be there already.
And the legalities of setting up that fund have already been approved?
Yes.
Congress or the state legislature has
Yes.
approved that and put it in there.
Yes, they have.
So all we have to do is work
We
out
just
the
have to
details and
establish the
implement.
plan
Yeah.
so we can estimate what the money will be needed. And when we get to the end of this project, then Moffett Nickel will be able to help us to establish that plan.
So there's method to the madness of not having a tax reduction.
Yes, sir. And as Tara stated, we are one of the lowest that offer the amount of services that we offer.
Police, fire, and the other. Yeah.
Right. Leaf and limb, second pickup.
Well, Public Works Building, I've been talking about that for 5 years now. I'd like to see it come to fruition. Storage area, protecting our equipment. Same thing we've been saying for the 5 years I've been on the council, and it was discussed before that. Fire training facility, it makes sense to have that. It's not like we're going to be paying that, whatever the cost of it is, each and every year. Renovations to town hall. They're needed. We can't put things off like has been done in the past, or some future council is going to be playing catch up. And I think we should look to the future and go ahead and get all these things started.
Based on what you just laid out as long-term needs or not so long-term needs, do we have an idea where that roughly $8 million is going to come from?
It'll be up to you all. Timing, of course, will be dependent on what general fund looks like at that point, and we can always finance.
Financing.
And we'll of course be looking for every penny that we can get in grant funds as well.
Yeah, we've done pretty good at that so far.
And as the dredging money comes back into us,
Mm-hmm.
that will offset
Right.
some of the general fund.
Are there grants available for town hall expansion, for DPW? There's grants available for all those things, right?
Public safety
Public
grants.
safety.
Mhm.
Okay. That's great. We got to fight for those grants. That really help. It really helped Majestic Oaks. Amazing.
Tara and I are very fond of free money.
So that leaves us with the issue COLA 7%, merit 3%, and the 500 per full-time employee bonus at the end of the year. My major concern, although I have no desire to put strict guidelines on there, but I think merit should not be across the board. And like I said, it looked like about 37 out of our employees got 3% and another 6 got 2.75%, which does not show it doesn't show what I consider to be an active management over using the merit as an incentive to get people to improve or do things as sort of a leadership that should come from the town administrator and then down into the department. Those are hard decisions that should be used in counseling employees on their annual evaluations, not just across the board, determining that everybody deserves a max merit raise. And reality of life is not everybody deserves a max or merit raise.
What
But I'm not gonna put down a specific guideline.
I was going to say that I think the only way to do that is to increase the guidelines that the supervisors have to go through. Jamie, when he said you go 10% over 2 years, that's 20%. And that's, wow, that sounds like a lot. Some of this we're still catching up. I don't know. I think some of this stuff we just have to bite the bullet and do it. I don't know how. I've been sitting here thinking about the merit increases and how to make it more equitable, but I don't know. I don't have the answer.
Tom?
The only way for the council to do that, I mean, you're talking about these decisions that are being made at a very local level. The only way for the council to really have any effect on that is to control the total fund. So you don't fund it as if it's a as if it's an across the board type of a
Funded at 2% versus
funded,
3%.
yeah,
And then
exactly.
the department heads decide where the money's allocated then.
That's how I've always been forced to do it back when I was working. So that's really the only way that the council can affect that. You can say that you want it to be 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, but you've got no way to really manage that from a council level.
Mike? You come from school systems.
Well, the bottom line is really what Charlie began to say when you go back to my background is, what do you put down as requirements for gaining that money? You know, what is there that it has to be evaluated from people who work under you, and you make sure that you have a pretty strict guideline on how you give out these, for example, the merit raises. But still, human nature comes in when that happens also. And you may have what you might call an easy boss that gives everybody merit raises. You may have somebody that sticks by the wording, sticks by the rules, and you have fewer people getting merit raises in another department. So it's a difficult thing to do. But the only thing I think you can require is what are the requirements? What does somebody have to do? Someone demonstrate in order to get the merit raise? And it's you have to really write things very, very black and white in order to do that.
Well, and I think that's where you get into too much micromanagement, as Tom's saying. If you say, okay, at that point, it's up to the department head. And in my mind, you shouldn't get a merit increase just for doing your job. It should be for going above and beyond.
Mm-hmm.
And who's going to know that
true.
better than the department heads? So let's say if you have this, you funded it 2%, with a maximum percentage you could get would be 3%. Then it's up to the department heads to allot that money accordingly. So they'll determine which employees are going above and beyond and which ones are, it's a tough choice for them, but that's the choice. And that's, like Tom said, that's I think the simplest way to manage it from a council level.
Well, I will say one thing with that, just because of the way our budget is set up, each department head would be part of that budget, but they don't evaluate themselves. So the town manager evaluates them and sets their percentage, and then that department head in that department sets the percentage below them. So they wouldn't have control over their entire amount. Just food for thought on that
But the
one.
town administrator would have that same process. An allocation
Correct,
would
but
go out
the
for
town
supervisor.
administrator's process would be in each person's budget, not in their budget. If that makes sense.
Yeah, the town administrator would be assigning from each departmental budget.
Yeah, so they would assign that percentage out of the 2% that was allocated to that department.
Right.
So the department head wouldn't actually have control over the whole 2%.
Right.
So what's the council here?
So I guess as we're discussing merit, should we just discuss the COLA level first? As that's the largest percentage are we acceptable of a 7% COLA increase?
I'm comfortable with the 7%.
I am too. Just let's keep the employees that we have. And I wouldn't mind looking at the idea of a higher increase for those 5 to 7 year employees and less for the higher paid employees. But
So now
I wouldn't know how to structure it.
right. So now we're sitting roughly we're over budget right now. So we need to cut something.
I'm sorry. What was that?
We're over budget right now, right?
Yes.
So from what we're seeing, out of everything on here, Mr. Nern, do you see anywhere else you'd like to cut? And we're not cutting, we're just determining how much of an increase is potential.
Well, a lot of this stuff is increasing prices of.
I understand that. So if those are necessary, then you have to find the money
Yep.
somewhere. And I'm not going to go for a tax increase. So where do you want to go from?
I'm not going to vote for a tax increase either.
Okay. So if you can't find anything else in this budget you'd like to cut, this is the only option right now of how much you want to give for a raise. That's where we're at. Or potential increase.
You could also look at just doing a COLA this year. There has been several years that the council just did COLAs and no merits.
Well, I've always been against balancing the budget on the backs of the employees.
Well, then determine what capital they don't get. And this again, we're not decreasing their salary here.
Yeah.
We're looking at nobody's saying they're not going to get a COLA increase, or we're not looking to get rid of merit, but we have to figure out where to do this financially.
My thoughts are go with the 7% COLA, put a merit at 2%, keep the bonus, and at the next round
You'd
come
more
back
than-
and see where the numbers come out.
The 2% would drop if you went to 2% merit,
Yeah.
like funded at 2%, that's 70,000, I think. No. it's 30-some thousand. So that would drop it enough to balance the budget.
Well, and you still have to come back and work in for sure the fire department stuff.
That's
and,
12. That's
Yeah,
12,000.
and the next iteration you will give us should show you pretty close to what the balanced budget is. And if it's not balanced, point out from staff point of view, from your perspective of what we should cut.
hmm
That would have the minimal negative impact on the town.
Well, if you drop it to 2%, then she'll be able to come back with a balanced budget on the 17th.
I mean, even if you did 2.5%, it'd be balanced at this point. You're only off by like $12,000, which can pretty much be eaten up anywhere in here.
I'm comfortable
Yeah, at
with
2.5%.
I'm comfortable with 2%.
I am too.
I would be.
7% still gives me heartburn that it,
We know that.
It's a give and take, Jamie.
that's
Everybody
where I'm.
Okay.
That's where I'm at. So yes.
Okay. So
Where does
so
the
you've got that 7% COLA,
7% COLA, 2%
merit,
merit,
and keep
and
the
I can
bonus.
balance it.
Mhm.
And then the 150, decrease the fire truck, and add a transfer to capital reserve.
Yes.
So is the 7% what the government's saying is the cost of living increase, or
That's
is that,
it's 6.9%.
okay?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, I'm good with that then.
Yeah.
Do you need anything else? Is that
That's it.
is
And
that-
then I'll
is that
send
settled enough for you?
I can make these changes today and be able to send this out to you this afternoon by email, or we can print it.
Is there a need for a meeting tomorrow?
If you meet tomorrow and you want to move forward with this tomorrow, we can do that, and then probably not meet on the 17th, or we can not meet tomorrow and then meet on the 17th. I don't think we need 2 more meetings, probably just 1, unless there's other big changes that you want to make, because this really is going to balance it.
So the next meeting.
would-
Okay, go ahead.
I mean, I would be comfortable. My schedule's already cleared for tomorrow. I don't know about everybody else.
I don't think it would be a very long meeting
Yeah.
either. It's more
Mhm.
of just what it looks like, and if you want to move forward, unless you come up with something overnight that you want to change that's big. And
Well,
then
if we meet tomorrow, you're less likely to get a change.
that sounds great. Let's meet tomorrow.
Let's meet tomorrow.
That sounds like a threat to me.
If we think about this too much, we might have great ideas. Who knows? So, okay, so you've got the guidance.
Yeah.
We'll come back tomorrow at 9 o'clock,
Mhm.
and you will be giving us specific pages that change.
Yep. So yeah.
I don't think you need to redo the whole thing, but just
Okay.
the pages where you've made changes.
Sounds good.
Anything else?
Very good.
So you'll need to make a motion to cancel the meeting for the 17th and make a motion to recess this meeting till tomorrow morning, please.
Have a motion?
Make a motion that we cancel the budget meeting for April 17th.
And
Oh, going to put 2 together and can reconvene tomorrow to hopefully finish the budget.
second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Thanks, Tara.
Thank you.
You make 'em. That's right.
Okay, so